Time to put some graphics on. So there's no magic to putting graphics on. You just got to take your time. It is time consuming. Depending on the bike, the 250R isn't too bad. The 450R has a lot of pieces, but I think the 450R was actually a little bit easier because they were smaller pieces. When you get into the larger fender pieces, the sides of the 250R that are really long, they can be tricky. So, again, just take your time. Basically what you need, this is water with just a few drops of Dawn dish detergent. And I didn't even fill the bottle up all the way. You don't want too much detergent because your graphics are probably going to end up peeling. I use a few drops and I haven't had any problems with them peeling. They were on my race bikes since last August and I had nothing peel. Sometimes you'll get little spots that'll bump up, and that's just because there's so much tension on it's thick vinyl. And sometimes you get rid of that with a heat gun. Sometimes it's just the way the curves are. There's so many compound curves in the fenders. So you need that. You have microfiber cloth, or what I like, these fiber shop towels. Just one of those, fold it up, and a heat gun. That's it. Doesn't have to be anything special. No special heat gun. Harbor Freight probably has them. That's about it. And then probably just a cleaner, because the main thing, you gotta start with a clean surface. So probably alcohol is ideal, but I've always done this and never had an issue. As long as you wipe it down good, get it dried. Just want to make sure there's nothing that's going to cause a bump. And depending on the color of your graphics, some colors are more forgiving. Other colors will show pretty much everything. I'm actually going to get another cloth here just to make sure that's good and dry. A little bit of dust or little particles aren't going to matter, but especially if you just cut them, make sure you wipe all that spatter off. And whether you race or not, in my opinion, is graphics just add so much to the bike. You're also going to protect your fenders. If you have a color like black, you're not going to show the scratches, because obviously that's one reason I've stayed away from black, because I know it shows everything. So knowing that my graphics cover so much of it, usually it's just kind of the edges that get a little scuffed up. So once you got that, make sure you have all your pieces laid out and ready to go. You know where they go. And a lot of graphics will have these relief cuts in them to help them flex. So on this one, it's right here in the back bump. It's a deep, deep bump. So when I lay this on, kind of want to get an idea where it's going to go. If you have the angle wrong, you see what happens. It's going to come off the edge. So you got to make sure that your angle that you're going, move it in if you have to. They're never perfect. And just make sure that relief cut is where it needs to be, because it's going to help lay it down a lot easier. So, and you don't have to use the solution. I guess they're really good guys. They don't use it, but honestly, I'm no professional, and this makes it so much easier because I know I can pull it off and shift it around, move it, and yeah. So I recommend it. As long as it's not too soapy, you're fine. You don't need a ton of spray on. Just get a nice even mist on there. So now I can peel my backing off. And then I'm going to start right up where that relief cut is. You don't want to push it down hard. Just kind of lightly wrap it, see how it looks. Get it up on the front here, see if you need to shift it at all. See how it comes off? That's a nice thing. Probably right about there. Leaf cuts lined up. Okay, so now once I get that part, I don't want this whole thing to be pressed down. you have to work this through. So I usually start with one area where I have decent contact, and then sometimes it's good to spray a little bit on top, just so your top rag doesn't stick. So now I get the heat gun out, and the heat gun helps the adhesive stick, but it also softens the vinyl, so it's going to be able to get in the curves there better. So I just start with one area. You got to work these in small areas. Make sure you get all your bubbles out. Work those bubbles, work everything out. You're going to have that water under there, the solution under there. And then sometimes you have to pick it up. I see I have a bubble here because I got a compound curve. So we'll do that. And then just heat it up as you work it. Usually heat up an area and then I lay it down. So if you have a transition there, run your finger down it, make sure it's good, and then hold it up and just work it slowly. Around your side here, and just work this up. And later on, if you do end up with a bubble that you missed, sometimes they show up the next day, you can actually just take your razor, just put a tiny pinhole in it, press that air out. Okay, so now the upper section is good. And I just work this like the width of that, 1.5 inches, 2 inches, heat that area up. Don't heat it up too much. This stuff will soften up and then it'll start to deform on you. So just a little bit at a time, not too much heat, just enough. Just work that through. You'll see water probably coming out. See, I feel a spot right there. That's why it's important to go a little bit at a time, because if you go too far and this solution starts to dry and the adhesive sticks, you're not going to be able to pull it up. We'll go back and get all the bubbles out, or I'll make sure everything's pressed down really well. Don't expect to get this perfect. I've done many sets now and still never 100% perfect. Luckily my graphics, because of all the color, the transitions, the camo hides a lot of it anyway. Just don't rush it. It's the main thing I can say. Expect probably to spend about 2 hours to get it done right, or close to right. Good as you're going to get it. Once you get down towards the ends, when there's compound angles, curves, that's where it gets a little trickier. And sometimes you have to heat it a little bit more to get it to go down correctly. So I'm starting to get bubble here because of the angle. Too many curves. Right here is where you'll start to get it to ripple out. So you just kind of have to work it in the middle, and then start in the middle and work it out. Same thing with this inside, it's going to do the same thing. So you'll see, you'll get a couple of these little bumps in here. A lot of times if you just heat those up a little bit more, push them down, they'll come right out. So that looks pretty good. Now what I'm going to do is just do another, heat the whole thing, get those edges. I want to make sure all those edges are seated really well. And look at it in different angles. As the light hits it, it's going to make any bubbles appear or any lifted edges. I can see a bunch over here, and that's probably because there's still water under them. So you got to get all that water out. And if you do mess up, and like your corner's overhanging, you can just take a razor and you have to trim it a little bit. I had that happen once. The key is kind of doing a dry run, making sure that the placement looks good. Got a little bubble here. It's gonna show. And what I like to do is, probably an hour or two after I lay these down, I'll come back with the heat gun and go over them again, because you will get some spots that'll lift. So, and even in the morning, the next day, I'll come back, just hit it a few times in those spots, soften it up, push it down. Hopefully the adhesive is still good, and you should be able to get those to flatten out. So that's pretty much it. Then you just go through and do the rest of them. This one here, because I cut the fenders, I'm going to have to test fit it and then trim it up. I don't like to lay it on, stick it, and then trim it, because I don't want the edge of the graphic, the decal, to be with the edge of the fender, because if something catches it like your leg, you're going to start peeling that up. So I like to keep it at least a 1/4 inch away from any of the edges, because then obviously nothing, if anything hits it, it's not going to peel up. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. Just jump in and do it. Don't be scared. If you got that solution down, you have some time to work with it, to pull it up. And you know, after you do honestly a couple of these, the rest of them go easier. Some of them are a little bit trickier than others. Other ones go right down. You know, just like I said, take your time. All right. So good luck, and see you next time.